The hall was brighter than any human had ever seen. Light poured down from towers of crystal, bending across the walls like rivers of fire. Alien voices echoed in every corner, chanting the promise of peace. Flags of dozens of worlds hung in long curtains, each one glowing with pride. To the galaxy, this day was history. To the humans, it was a stage built for a lie. They had walked into this hall knowing that every step forward was also a step deeper into danger. Yet their boots did not slow. Their eyes did not turn away. They had learned long ago that fear was a weapon, and they refused to let their enemies taste it. The Alien Council believed that this gathering was their victory. For months they had whispered among themselves that humanity had finally broken. The war had cost Earth too much. Fleets burned, colonies destroyed, soldiers lost. From the shadows of distant stars, the Council watched and waited for the humans to bend, and now they thought that day had come. A peace treaty signed here in this place would end the war on their terms. Humanity would kneel without a fight, bound by promises that could be twisted with time. The Council had planned every word, every gesture, and every trap. But as the humans entered, a silence rippled through the chamber. The alien leaders leaned forward, expecting weakness. Instead, they saw faces carved in stone. The human delegation walked with steady steps, every movement too calm, too certain. Their black uniforms shimmered under the alien lights, and their eyes carried the weight of something unseen. They were soldiers disguised as diplomats, warriors who had crossed galaxies not to bow but to watch. Their presence unsettled the air itself. The Council did not understand it, but they felt it. A storm hidden behind still water. The speeches began with all the usual rituals. Alien voices rose in grand tones, speaking of peace, of unity, of the end of bloodshed. They used words like harmony and brotherhood, words polished until they shined like weapons. Every phrase was carefully built to press against the human image. They called Earth resilient but tired, brave but beaten, stubborn but alone. Each line was designed to remind the humans of their weakness, and yet the humans said nothing. They sat in silence, hands folded, eyes steady. That silence was louder than any insult. The Council members shifted uneasily, but they pressed on, determined to finish the game they had started. Deep beneath the floor, hidden weapons waited. Plasma cannons were built into the walls, shield grids ready to snap into place, and soldiers disguised as guards stood at attention. The trap was waiting for a single command. Once the treaty was signed, once the humans let their guard down, the chamber would become a cage. The Council planned to destroy the delegation in one strike and claim the war ended by accident. The galaxy would never know the truth. It would only see that humanity had died in a hall of peace, but the humans had not come blind. For weeks before this day, their scouts had listened to whispers in the dark. Their ships had tracked strange movements around the Council's capital. Their analysts had read patterns in every intercepted message. Humanity had seen the shape of the trap long before it closed, and instead of avoiding it, they had chosen to walk straight inside. They knew that their enemies trusted arrogance more than truth. They knew that the Council would never believe humans capable of foresight. That disbelief would be their downfall. The lead human diplomat, a tall man with sharp eyes, finally rose from his chair. The room stilled. Every alien leaned forward, waiting for words of submission, the moment they had dreamed of. His voice was calm, even softer than expected, but it carried like a blade through the air. He thanked the Council for their welcome. He spoke of the suffering of war, of the cost paid by all sides. His words were measured, patient, almost humble. But beneath them there was something else, something no alien voice could hide or fake. It was not fear. It was not weakness. It was warning. As he spoke, his eyes swept across the chamber. He studied the walls where cannons hid, the guards who stood too stiff, the shadows that seemed too deep. His gaze did not linger, but every alien watching felt it. It was as if he could see through the crystal walls into the bones of the trap itself. When he paused, silence swallowed the hall again. The Council leader forced a smile, raising his hands in the air as though welcoming the future. But his throat tightened, because in that silence he felt something he could not name. Outside in the void, ships drifted unseen, human warships cloaked in black silence, engines cold, weapons primed. They were not part of the treaty, not part of the show, but they were there all the same. Every cannon, every missile, every hidden weapon waited for a signal. Humanity had walked into this trap armed in ways no alien could imagine. They had not come for peace. They had come for survival. And survival meant never trusting the promises of those who once tried to erase them. The humans remained still, masks of calm against a hall full of schemes. The council believed the first step of their plan had worked. But what they did not see was that the stage had already shifted. The game was no longer theirs to control. The humans were not prey caught in a cage. They were predators waiting for the perfect strike. And as the light burned brighter on that crystal stage, the galaxy stood on the edge of a revelation it was not ready to face. Humanity was here, and humanity had not come unarmed. The Hall of Peace glowed with alien pride, but beneath its polished surface the weight of deceit pressed heavier with every passing minute. The council leader smiled as though the treaty was a gift, but inside his heart beat with anticipation. For him, this was not peace. This was a hunt. He had spent years weaving the trap with promises and gestures that looked honest. Humanity would believe they were walking into an agreement, and the galaxy would believe it too. But once the final words were spoken, once the ink touched the treaty, the council would spring the cage and end the human problem forever. The humans listened to every word. Their faces gave nothing away. No flicker of doubt, no twitch of fear. They looked almost like statues sitting under the blinding light. The council mistook that silence for surrender. They believed the humans had lost their will to resist. Yet hidden behind that silence was calculation. Every glance and every pause measured. The humans were not here to surrender. They were here to see how far their enemies would go. The speeches stretched on. One alien governor spoke of sacrifice, another of rebuilding, another of trust. The words piled like bricks, building a tower of lies so high that even the speakers could no longer see the ground beneath them. The human delegation waited, their patience sharp as a blade. They knew the moment would come soon. The first signal. The first sign that the trap was moving. Their mission was not just to survive this hall. It was to reveal the truth of the council before the eyes of the galaxy. Hidden mechanisms hummed within the walls. The alien guards tensed their hands on rifles disguised as ceremonial staffs. The energy shields above the chamber were set to fall at a whisper. The council believed themselves clever, but in their arrogance they had left traces. The faint vibration underfoot, the smell of charged plasma bleeding through polished stone, the way the guards never blinked. The humans noticed it all. To the untrained eye it was invisible, but to soldiers who had lived through sieges and ambushes it was louder than thunder. The lead human delegate leaned slightly to one side, as if adjusting his seat. His eyes caught the movement of a guard in the corner. It was a small thing, but enough to confirm what they already suspected. The room was a weapon. The treaty was bait. The council was not here to honor peace, but to crush Earth in one swift strike. A shadow passed across the diplomat's thoughts, not of fear, but of memory. He remembered cities burning, soldiers dying with names whispered on their lips, and the promise carved into every survivor's heart. Never again would humanity kneel without a fight. The council leader rose, his arms wide like a priest at an altar. His voice carried the weight of power, filling the chamber with the sound of victory. He called for humanity to rise, to stand and sign the treaty before all gathered worlds. The words rolled like thunder, echoing against the crystal walls. The aliens applauded, their cheers a chorus of triumph. To them, this was the end of resistance. To the humans, it was the signal they had been waiting for. Slowly, the lead diplomat stood. The sound of his chair scraping against the floor was like steel drawn from a sheath. The applause died. His steps echoed as he moved toward the great table at the center of the hall. The treaty lay upon it, glowing with symbols of unity, its ink shimmering with false hope. Every eye in the chamber turned to him. He lifted the pen, held it in his hand, and paused. For a heartbeat, the entire galaxy held its breath. The pause was not hesitation. It was a test. In that silence, the humans watched the council twitch with impatience. Some leaned forward, others gripped their seats. They were desperate, eager for the trap to close. That eagerness betrayed them. The human diplomat lowered the pen, but his eyes lifted to meet the council leaders. The faintest smile touched his lips, a smile not of surrender but of warning. It sent a ripple through the hall, though none could explain why. Then, without speaking a word, he placed the pen back on the table. The council leader stiffened, confusion flickering in his face. The chamber grew restless. Aliens whispered to each other, unsure what this meant. The diplomat folded his hands behind his back, his posture calm and steady. It was not the action of a beaten man. It was the stance of a soldier. And in that stance, the hall began to sense the truth. Outside, beyond the glow of the capital world, something stirred in the darkness. Sensors hidden across orbit detected shadows moving where none should exist. Fleets of human ships drifted silently, their hulls black against the void, their engines cold. They had been waiting for this exact moment, hidden beyond detection, watching with patient eyes. The treaty was not their surrender. It was their lure. Back inside the chamber, the council leader tried to cover his unease. He raised his voice louder, demanding the humans complete the ritual. He gestured sharply and the guards shifted, their weapons almost visible now. The energy in the hall shifted from false celebration to the sharp edge of violence. But still the humans did not flinch. They had walked into the trap with open eyes, and now the moment of revelation was close. One of the alien governors slammed his hand on the table, shouting for action. The council leader gave the faintest nod, and that was enough. The floor beneath the humans trembled. Hidden panels slid open. The chamber walls began to hum as plasma coils prepared to fire. The trap had been sprung. The aliens leaned forward to watch humanity break, but the humans did not break. The lead diplomat reached into his pocket and placed a small black device upon the treaty. Its surface flickered with strange light, a glow unlike any alien technology. The council froze, unsure of what they were seeing. The humans knew what it was. It was the first piece of their answer, the proof that they had not come unarmed. And as that glow spread across the table, the chamber's silence turned into fear. The council realized too late that humanity had been watching all along. The hunters were about to learn they had been walking into the jaws of a far deadlier predator. The moment the small black device touched the treaty table, a ripple of unease moved through the chamber. At first it seemed harmless, no larger than a stone, but the glow spreading across its surface was unnatural. The council members exchanged confused glances, their confidence faltering. They had expected fear, begging, maybe even desperate pleas. Instead, the humans were calm, their silence heavier than the humming walls around them. The device pulsed once, and a low vibration filled the air. Some alien guards tightened their grips on weapons while others shifted uneasily. The council leader tried to keep his voice steady, demanding the humans explain themselves, but his words cracked like brittle glass. The diplomat did not answer. His eyes swept the room again, steady and unshaken. His posture was no longer that of a guest, but of a commander taking measure of enemy ground. The trap was meant to break humanity in one swift strike. Yet the council now felt something slipping from their control. Their hidden weapons, their sealed doors, their careful plans, all of it suddenly felt fragile in the presence of that small, glowing object. One governor leaned close to the council leader and whispered urgently, but the leader shook his head. Pride and arrogance chained him to the path he had chosen. The hall trembled again, this time not from the council's devices but from above. Something vast moved in orbit, cloaked from sight but heavy enough to disturb the atmosphere. The alien dignitaries did not know what it was, but the humans did. Their fleet was no longer waiting. It was positioning. The diplomat finally spoke, his voice low but sharp enough to cut through the whispers. He thanked the council again for their hospitality, but then his tone shifted. He said humanity valued peace, but never peace built on chains. He said treaties signed under lies were nothing more than weapons dressed as paper. His words were simple, without anger, yet each one struck like iron. The governors stirred in their seats, their anger rising, but their unease only grew stronger. The council leader raised his hand, giving the silent signal at last. The floor panels opened and plasma cannons slid into place. Guards leveled their rifles, the walls blazed with energy fields. The trap closed fully, every alien in the chamber grinning as though the moment of triumph had come, but the humans did not move. They sat still, faces calm, eyes forward as though the threat meant nothing. The diplomat looked down at the device on the table. It pulsed again, and the glow spread wider, crawling across the treaty itself like veins of fire. A loud crack shook the chamber as one of the alien cannons powered up. The diplomat raised his hand, not in surrender, but as if giving a signal only his people understood. Far above the world, human warships broke their silence. One by one, they dropped from cloak, dark shapes cutting across the stars, their weapons already alive with energy. For years, the council had believed humanity was behind in technology, clumsy and reckless compared to the galaxy's refined powers. Now they saw weapons they could not recognize, engines that bent light itself, ships shaped not for beauty, but for war. The alien dignitaries gasped, their whispers turning into cries of disbelief. The council leader barked orders to fire, but hesitation spread through the guards. They saw the ships on the screens filling the sky, blocking out the light of their own sun. The diplomat's calm became more terrifying than any weapon. It was the calm of a species that knew it was no longer prey. The first plasma shot rang out, streaking toward the humans at the table. The black device pulsed brighter and the energy vanished into its glow, absorbed like water into sand. The hall shook, but the humans remained untouched. Gasps filled the air. The council leader slammed his fists on the table, ordering more fire, but each shot was swallowed by the strange human device. The predators had become helpless, their weapons turned into nothing. Outside, the true battle began. Alien fleets rushed to defend the capital, but the humans were ready. Missiles lit the void, carving through shields like glass. Alien ships scattered, their formations broken before they could form. The human fleet moved with precision, every strike aimed not at random but at the arteries of the Council's power. Communication hubs, fuel stations, supply convoys, all were targets. Humanity had studied its enemy and was cutting them apart piece by piece. Back in the hall, fear spread like smoke. The governors who had shouted for human surrender now shrank back in their seats. Guards hesitated, some lowering their weapons, others trembling with indecision. The council leader's face twisted in rage, but beneath his fury was terror. He realized the truth too late. This was not humanity walking into a trap. This was humanity dragging the council into one. The diplomat leaned closer to the council leader, his voice steady, cold. He said humanity had listened to every word, seen every hidden cannon, counted every guard. He said the council thought humans were blind, but humans had eyes sharper than steel. He spoke of the wars Earth had survived, of enemies stronger, of disasters harsher. He told them that humanity had walked into this chamber with one lesson written into their blood. Never again would they bow to those who came with lies. The device pulsed one final time, and the lights in the hall dimmed. The alien weapons fell silent, their power drained, their traps broken. The governors shouted in panic, demanding explanations, but none came. The humans did not need to explain. Their message was already written in fire across the skies of the capital world. The hall that had been built for peace had become something else. It was no longer a chamber of unity, but a cage closing on those who believed themselves untouchable. The aliens sat in silence now, the sound of battle outside echoing through the crystal walls. The humans had not surrendered. They had not come to bow. They had come armed with more than weapons. They had come armed with truth, and with the iron will of survival. And as the glow of the black device faded into silence, every alien in that hall felt the same thing. The galaxy had changed, and humanity had written the change in a language of fear. The sky above the capital world was no longer a symbol of safety. It had become a battlefield painted with fire. Human warships cut through the black void, their weapons striking with terrifying precision. Alien fleets scrambled to respond, their commanders shouting over broken channels, but chaos consumed them before they could form a single line. Explosions tore across the orbit, scattering burning wrecks that fell toward the world below like dying stars. The council had believed they controlled the stage, yet the stage itself was collapsing under the weight of humanity's answer. Inside the chamber, the silence of the humans was more powerful than the roar of the battle outside. They did not rise, they did not shout. They simply sat, their eyes steady as though everything unfolding had already been written. The council leaders, once so proud, now leaned forward with trembling hands. Their voices cracked as they demanded their guards act, but the guards hesitated. The black device still pulsed faintly on the treaty table, a reminder that their weapons were useless. No soldier wished to fire into nothingness and die for nothing. The diplomat stepped away from his chair. His boots rang against the crystal floor, each step echoing louder than cannon fire. The governors recoiled as if each step carried a weight they could not bear. His face showed no joy, no triumph, only the cold certainty of a man who knew the truth before it was spoken. He stopped at the edge of the table, his hand brushing across the treaty's glowing script. With one motion he pushed it aside, the parchment fluttering to the ground like ash. The chamber gasped. To the aliens, that treaty was sacred, a document meant to bind an entire species. To the humans, it was worthless, a chain made of lies. The council leader rose to his feet, his voice shaking with rage. He accused the humans of betrayal. of daring to turn peace into war, but the words rang hollow. Even his own governors did not believe him. They had seen the cannons hidden in the walls, the guards too eager, the signals passed in secret. It was their betrayal, not humanity's, and now, the lie they built with so much pride had collapsed on their own heads. The human diplomat spoke again, his words quiet yet sharp enough to pierce the storm. He said peace was only possible when built on truth, and that the Council had never spoken truth to humanity. He said Earth had lost too much to trust promises whispered from behind sharpened blades. His voice carried across the chamber, not in anger but in judgment. It was not a speech for the Council alone. It was for every alien watching, every dignitary who would carry this story back to their worlds. Humanity had not come to bow or to beg. Humanity had come to show the galaxy that it could not be broken. A sudden boom shook the chamber as the ground beneath trembled. Outside, another alien fleet was torn apart, their capital defense ships falling one by one. Smoke streaked across the sky, casting shadows over the city below. The governors turned pale, realizing that the war they thought contained was at their doorstep. The humans had not just come armed with ships. They had come armed with strategy, with knowledge of every weakness the Council had tried to hide. The Council leader's mask of control shattered. He slammed his fists on the table, his voice rising into a scream. He demanded his soldiers kill the humans to silence them before the humiliation could spread further, but his guards froze. Their eyes flickered between the humans, calm and unshaken, and the leader trembling with desperation. The guards had once believed the Council untouchable, but now they saw fear in their master's eyes. Fear was a poison, and it spread quickly. One guard lowered his weapon. Another followed. In moments, the circle of power the Council believed unbreakable had cracked. The diplomat reached into his coat and placed another device on the table. This one did not glow softly like the first. It pulsed with a steady rhythm, a heartbeat of steel. The governors whispered nervously, their voices tight with dread. They asked what it was, what the humans intended, but no answer came. The diplomat simply looked at them with eyes that had watched cities burn and had promised never again. His silence was more terrifying than any weapon. Above, the human fleet unleashed another wave of fire. Alien communication arrays shattered, blinding entire systems. Without orders, their fleets broke apart, commanders panicking in the dark. The humans moved like hunters through a forest of prey, striking with ruthless precision. They did not waste fire. Every shot was meant to send a message. Humanity had studied its enemies, and it would not hesitate to strike where it hurt the most. Back in the hall, panic erupted among the governors. Some shouted for surrender, others demanded escape. But there was no escape. The chamber was sealed and the city outside burned. The Council leader tried to rally them, his voice rising in desperation, but it was too late. His power was gone. The humans had not needed to kill him. They had only needed to reveal him for what he was, a liar trembling behind false promises. The diplomat finally spoke once more. He said humanity did not seek war, but they would not run from it. He said Earth had been invited to sign peace, but instead found betrayal waiting beneath the ink. He promised that every betrayal would be answered, not with words, but with the iron will of survival. His tone was not cruel, not mocking. It was a simple truth, spoken by a species that had endured too much to believe in easy lies. The black device on the table pulsed one final time, and the chamber lights flickered. The alien cannons shut down completely, their power drained, their traps nothing but dead metal. The governors stared in horror, understanding now that the humans had never been trapped at all. They had been in control from the moment they stepped inside. Outside, the capital world shook as human warships roared overhead, their shadows stretching across the land. The trap had been reversed. The hunters had become prey, and the galaxy would never forget the day when humanity walked into the jaws of betrayal and emerged armed with fire and unbroken will. The chamber smelled of fear, not the sharp scent of fire or plasma, but the heavy silence of leaders realizing their power had slipped through their fingers. The governors who once looked down on humanity now avoided the humans' eyes. They had built this hall as a monument of control, but in this moment it felt like a tomb. Every crystal panel reflected their weakness. Every glowing banner of peace mocked their failure. The treaty lay crumpled on the floor, forgotten, as though it had never mattered at all. The human diplomat stood tall at the center of it all. He was not a conqueror, not a tyrant, but a soldier who carried the memory of every city burned and every soldier buried. His voice was steady as he spoke again, telling the council that Earth had listened to their promises but had never believed them. He said humanity had fought too hard to accept peace that came at the edge of a blade. He reminded them that peace was not given, it was earned, and those who tried to buy it with lies would pay with their thrones. Outside, the war raged across the skies. The alien fleets that once stretched across half the galaxy were collapsing under the human assault. Their ships, built with pride and polished with arrogance, cracked under the raw precision of human strategy. For every strike the aliens launched, the humans answered with 3. Their warships moved like blades, cutting supply lines, destroying command vessels, leaving their enemies blind and broken. Every explosion above the capital world echoed into the chamber, reminding the governors that the future they planned was already gone. The council leader refused to surrender. His pride chained him to the chair he clutched like a throne. He shouted for reinforcements, but none came. He demanded the governors stand with him, but their silence betrayed him. One by one, their eyes dropped to the floor. Some whispered prayers, others begged for ships to retreat, but there was no retreat left. Humanity had closed the circle. There was nowhere to run. The diplomat placed his hand on the second black device pulsing on the table. The heartbeat of steel grew louder, filling the chamber until even the council leader could not speak over it. He asked them a final question. How many times had they thought of humanity as nothing more than a problem to solve? How many times had they counted Earth as a world too small, too fragile, too weak to matter? His words carried no anger, only truth, and truth was heavier than any weapon. The governors shifted uncomfortably, their silence an answer of shame. The diplomat leaned forward, his eyes locking on the council leader. He told him that every time the council had mocked Earth, every time they had sent fleets to crush colonies, every time they had whispered of human weakness, they had taught humanity a lesson. They had taught them never to trust, never to bow, and never to forget. The room grew colder as the words sank in. The council leader trembled but still tried to raise his voice. His defiance was not strength. It was desperation. The second device pulsed brighter and the chamber doors unlocked with a hiss. For the first time, sound rushed in from the outside. The cries of the city below, the roar of engines, the clash of war. The governors turned toward the sound, their faces pale. They understood now that the humans had not come to end the war with words. They had come to end the war with truth written in fire. The diplomat spoke again, this time not to the council alone, but to every dignitary present. He said humanity did not seek conquest. They sought survival, and survival meant showing the galaxy that betrayal had a price. He told them to carry this message back to their worlds. Earth does not kneel. Earth does not forget. Earth does not forgive. His voice carried like thunder across the chamber, and none who heard it would ever erase it from memory. Outside, the final strike fell. The largest alien carrier, the pride of the council fleet, erupted into a storm of flame. Its wreckage burned through the sky, breaking apart in streaks of fire that lit the capital as bright as a dying sun. The governors gasped, their last hope collapsing in front of them. The council leader sank into his chair, his voice finally silent. His eyes, once filled with arrogance, now stared empty at the table where the treaty had turned to ash. The humans stood together, their silence a wall no enemy could climb. They had walked into this hall with traps waiting on every side, but they had turned the trap into a weapon of their own. The governors understood the lesson, and the galaxy would understand it too. Humanity had not come unarmed. They had come with fleets, with strategy, with the will to fight, but more than that, they had come with unity. Something the council had never understood.